Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Walker, and I'm the manager of athlete development here at USA Volleyball. Today, I have the privilege of being joined by Scott Davenport, who is the head development coach for our Beach national team. And today, Scott's going to be sharing a little bit about what athletes should consider if they're looking to make that transition from indoor into beach. So, Scott, you obviously have a pretty robust history within the beach game. So as we think about that, you get a lot of athletes who transition from the indoor game to the beach. What are some of the things that you see as athletes make that transition? Maybe challenges, opportunities?
There's a lot of differences when you transition over to beach. The elements are huge. That's a big challenge for athletes to figure that out. It takes a little bit of time, but yeah, it's a big thing. The wind, the sand's moving under their feet. That's something they're not used to, so the balance is completely different. A lot of the skills are similar, but I think they're more defined on the beach. Like indoor, you can flick balls around. You can kind of be quicker with your movements. On the beach, you have to be a little bit more completed and defined. So those are some of the challenges for sure. The opportunities, I think there's a lot of those as well. But I think the big thing is if you're a player that was role delineated indoors and you're not used to doing a lot of the skills, either they shy away from that or they embrace it. And I think the ones that embrace it are the ones that can really, really excel at the sport for sure.
So as you think about helping these athletes make that transition from indoor to beach, you just commented about the fact that you move from being an isolated role-specific player to more of a utility player. So how have you helped coach athletes through that transition?
We try to empower them by giving as much knowledge as we can about the why you do the things, what you're doing, why you're doing, what the adjustments are. And just, obviously give them as many reps as you possibly can, focused reps. But just letting them know that, try to empower the confidence that you can do these things, even though maybe like setting wasn't something you ever did. It's not as complicated maybe as they want it to be or as difficult as they think it is. So we try to ease them in that way. Just be like, it's really not that hard. We'll show you the progressions. It's easier. Let's do it this way. That's one way we try to help.
As athletes, again, make that transition, partnership selection becomes really important. So as they're moving out to the beach, how do you help an athlete determine who they should be playing with and partnership decisions?
It's hard to answer that because we're still doing that. I get players in my group asking me that, who do I play with? I was like, I'm not making that call for you guys. You got to make that decision on your own. No, I mean, the biggest thing is obviously you want to play with the best player you can play with, best player on the board. But I think finding a partner that complements your weaknesses and your strengths is probably the best way to go about it. So let's say you're the big player, you're a good blocker, maybe not a great setter, but you serve well too. It's like you want to find someone who's a really good defender, who's got really exceptional ball skills and maybe sees the game really well. So there's a lot of those balancing acts I think is important. Personality is huge too, but that you don't necessarily know right away. Usually, at least when we're dealing with our Olympic athletes in quads, on paper, yeah, I'm going to play with that person. Cool. You partner up, you get out there, you see if the dynamic works. And then about a year in, traveling on the road, living with each other, you kind of figure out, if the marriage, quote unquote, will work or not. So that's a big piece of it, but that's the unknown. You just never know until you get out there. For the juniors, I don't know. I haven't really been in the junior world too much, but I know there's a lot of partners switching all the time. So I think they're more adaptable to that piece of it. And I think they have a lot more options and partners too.
So as we think about that partner selection in particular, one of the things you just highlighted is some of the relationship needs to be negotiated with partners. Beach is kind of interesting when you consider the role the coach has versus the role the partners have with each other when they're on the court. So how do you help advise athletes to build strong relationships with their partners?
I tend to employ sports psychologists for that piece because it's basically relationship building. I worked with previous to this job. I worked with a friend of mine who was a really high-level sports psych, and he had never done beach before. He had done team stuff, or soccer and indoor volleyball. And his comment after starting was like, this is like marriage counseling. This is like, it's nothing I've ever experienced before. And I was like, yeah, it's hard to navigate. So for me, we do as much as we can to facilitate, more bonding stuff and understanding each other and trying to communicate on different levels and how you see the game, versus how you see the game. But I think a sports psych is very, very critical in that piece because to me as a coach, and again, I learned this from my friend, that once I take off my coaching hat and put on the other hat, there's some level of, I don't know what you're going to call it, but there's some level of they're not going to listen to you as a coach anymore sometimes, because you've got to challenge them, as people, and that's not comfortable necessarily. But we do our best, and then we try to implore somebody to come in and help us.
Absolutely. So one of the things that you've really spoken about in the past as kind of a guide for your coaching is building a reciprocal relationship with the athlete so that they can provide feedback, you can help them develop in that space. How do you empower athletes to speak up, to have a good relationship with you where you're bouncing ideas off of each other for their game?
I mean, we talk to them in the beginning and just say, look, this is a collaborative effort. We're going to do our best to teach you everything that we know, and then so that you know what we know. And then I want to see how you see the game. I want to see, adjustments that you feel might work for you and your style of play or your personality, or your dynamic as a team, and it's a little different. It's a lot different actually than, indoor, because you have a system that you go off of and you keep that system and everybody plugs into that system. Where on the beach, you can do that, and college programs are kind of doing that because they interchange athletes. For our program specifically, I don't think we tried to do it initially, it didn't work because everybody is unique in how they have strengths and weaknesses. Let's offensively, right? What can you do well? What can you not do well? We ask our athletes all the time. I'm like, does that work for you? I think this might work for you. Try this. Does it work for you? It doesn't. Okay, let's scrap it. What do you think might work for you? So we're always talking to them as if we want their input as often as possible, because they need to take ownership of their game. I think more so than you do indoors, because you're out there by yourself. At least internationally, we can't help you. Once we warm you up, you guys are all on your own, so you got to figure it out.
Absolutely. So for younger athletes who might be entering the game, who might be a little more hesitant to step up to take that role, to have a little bit more engagement with the coach, how would you advise them to really take that initiative?
I like to approach it as you're going into a classroom, and if you can't ask your teacher questions that you're curious about or you don't know the answers to, and you want to know the answers to, that's how I would approach it. To me, and I've said this in the past numerous times, like, to me, coaching is teaching. And if you as a coach approach it as a dictatorship type thing, and you're telling people what to do versus, empowering them to do things on their own or to figure out a better way of doing it necessarily than, what you're teaching them, or collaboratively going, oh, let's go this direction because, it works for you. I don't think they can do your athletes a disservice. So I would implore athletes to just ask questions, not as if you're questioning the coach per se, but as if you want answers to things just because you want the knowledge.
Yeah. So one of the things that I spoke recently with Brian Hurler about was allowing athletes to make mistakes and build failure into practice. So as you think about, again, in that line of empowering your athletes, how do you make your athletes not afraid to fail out on the court during training?
You can do a couple different ways. You can put them into drills where they're going to make mistakes intentionally. You can put them in the drills where you reward them for attempting to do things that are highly difficult, like bonus points and different things like that. Again, we approach our practices as it's a learning environment. We challenge them to go for things at times and to not go for things at times. But inside of the going for it and making a mistake, it's always like, well, what did you learn from that? Like, did you learn that works? And then we try to put data to it. Like, we'll stat things in practice and just be like, okay, well, we tried this 10 times. It worked this many times, this percentage of the time. Maybe we keep it, maybe we don't, but they're learning to make good decisions, and better decisions as they learn through the process. So to me, that's the best way to do it, I think.
I love it. I love the idea of just tossing your athletes in, but also giving them the why, which is something you explained very early. Okay. So as we think about those athletes who may be coming up through the youth pipeline or transitioning from indoor into beach, maybe at the end of their collegiate career, any final pieces of advice that you would give them for finding success on the beach?
It's a good one. Don't go play indoor, kidding. Come play beach. We need more people. I think beach is a whole lot of fun. I mean, you're outside, it's social, you're in the sun. I mean, you can make it your own, which is a little different, I think, than indoors, where you're part of a big team, where you're part of a smaller team, and out here, at least right now, you kind of pick your team. So you find the people that work for you and work best with you. So there's that piece of it where you're not being told this is what you're doing. So I think it fits for some personalities, but not for all. So, if you're of the personality where it's like, just tell me what to do and I'm in, then yeah, bigger teams are more for you, but if people want more activity and more ownership and, more involvement in every aspect of the play, then seek out the beach for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today,
Yeah,
Scott.
absolutely. Thank you.